It's a pleasure to have with us a senator from South Carolina, Tim Scott. Senator, how are you, sir?
Mark, it's always good to be on the show with you. Thanks so much for having me. I'm doing great.
Thank you. You know, everybody likes you. You're very likable. You're a very likable person. You're a very kind person. I can tell in my own dealings with you, which aren't multifold, but nonetheless. And so I want to make sure. Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was going to say thank you. I've said this to you in person. I said it to you on your TV show, and I'll say it one more time. The thing I like about you, and I listened to you last night on Sean Hannity as well, is you speak the truth. You are fierce, you are powerful, and you are strong.
Well, I want to make sure I'm right. Thank you, because I may have said something inaccurate when you were talking about Trump. Look, you're running against Trump, so you don't have to support him or support his views or support his tweets or support his positions. But I think this attack on him by the Biden administration, I think we should all unite around and at least condemn what they're trying to do. Am I wrong about that?
You're not wrong at all. What I've said, and I'll say it again, that in America, as Americans, we need a justice system where the Lady of Justice wears a blindfold. I can say with complete confidence that this Department of Justice has been hunting Republicans and specifically the former president while protecting Democrats.
I think that's right. And while we're speaking of that, what do you make of this stuff with bribery and potential recordings and shell corporations set up LLCs so they're blind, and millions and millions coming from the Chinese Communist government, the Romanian government, and on and on and on. And the Attorney General hasn't even appointed a special counsel to investigate the president.
This is a major problem. It's one of the reasons why I have serious confidence in Chuck Grassley. I'm right here in Pella, Iowa right now, and I will tell you that we can have confidence in Congressman Comer as well as in Senator Grassley to continue to do the work that the DOJ refuses to do, which is to bring to light all the evidence surrounding these allegations. That is the job of the FBI. It's the job of the DOJ. And unfortunately, they have consistently been unwilling. It's one of the reasons why I talk about protecting Democrats while hunting Republicans. Thank God for Senator Grassley. I will do it as President of the United States. If they don't finish it, I will.
Let me ask you this. You obviously decided to run for president. What are the one or two or three things that really motivated you to do this?
I believe that we have to restore hope, create opportunities, and protect the America that we love. When I think about restoring hope, Mark, I was a kid that grew up in poverty, as you know. I went to 4 different elementary schools by the 4th grade. I want to make sure that every child and every zip code has quality education, and school choice is fundamental. In order for us to protect America, we have to think about 2 things: our southern border, closing it down to save 70,000 Americans from dying at the hands of fentanyl because the Mexican cartels are trafficking it across our borders. And I believe in Psalms 122:6, praying for the peace of Jerusalem, and those who do will prosper. We must stand shoulder to shoulder or back to back with our allies. We must be loyal to our friends and lethal to our adversaries.
Speaking of lethal to our adversaries, the Communist Chinese are building for war. They control both ends of the Panama Canal. They have a spy facility in Cuba. They have violated the Monroe Doctrine repeatedly. They and the Russians have up to 27 independent bases of sorts in Central and South America. In the Solomon Islands, which includes Guadalcanal, where my great-uncle fought, they now have a deep water port for their Navy. They have a deep water port on the western end of Africa, which faces the United States. And I'm not even talking about in the Indo-Pacific, where obviously they built the fake islands. They have more ships than we do. They are years ahead of us on hypersonic missiles. They are years ahead of us on killer satellites. And I could go on and on and on. I'm not saying we're a pushover, but we're definitely losing ground in this respect. I'm going to ask you if you're concerned about it, and are you concerned enough, and I'm asking everybody this, that you believe that, number one, psychologically, we better understand what's going on here, and number two, we have to prepare for this. We're not prepared.
100% agree with you, Mark. Here's what I would say, and I say it very clearly. Only 11% of our military assets are in the Indo-Pacific. We need to double that. We need to make sure that, as I said earlier, being loyal to our allies has to include Taiwan and Japan, as well as other Asian nations, because we need a coalition on our side. And I will say that as the threat grows heavier and darker in the Indo-Pacific, we are the light. We are the city on the hill. We are the beacon in the midst of the storm. But our allies need to know that, because the weakness of President Biden sends shivers down the spines of our allies. Under President Scott, we would stand strong with our allies, and not only the things that you've named, which are numerous, but we also need to remember the Made in China 2025. We need to remember the Belt and Road Project. We need to remember that they're stealing our intellectual property and making their rise on our debt payments. We have to decouple or unscramble the egg of the economic coalition that seems to be there, but in fact, we are in the middle of an economic Cold War with China. It's the retreat of President Biden, not the strength of President Xi, that we should be very concerned about.
You know, Tim Scott, throughout your life, different respects, you've faced racism, and you've also faced love by other people of other races and religions and so forth. But since you've announced, have you seen, whether it's Hollywood, whether they're on TV, whether they're reporters and so forth, have you seen the level of venom towards you has increased because you are a black man who is a conservative, who's running for president as a Republican?
Mark, the answer is emphatically yes. And The View, the ladies of The View, is a classic example of what you just described. Sitting there with Sonny and Whoopi as they talked about systemic racism and made fun of me and Clarence Thomas, because we both understand that this is not a racist country, that we are proud to be Americans. We're proud of the evolution. We should thank God Almighty that this nation has afforded me, a kid raised in that single-parent household, not just to rise out of high school or to college, but to start my own business and to live my version of the American dream. It is possible, actually probable, that if you get a good education, that is your key to success in America. Mark, the thing you and I both understand and we embrace, the future of America is not determined by the color of your skin, but by the quality of your education, by your grit, your talent, and your character. These are the characteristics that lead to American flourishing. We should celebrate that, not cancel it.
And what do you make of this, though? The culture is under attack. The family's under attack. Even Martin Luther King's speech in Washington, D.C. about a colorblind society. The notion of a colorblind society today is said to be racist. What do you make of what I argue is this American Marxism that is sort of a dark cloud that's pouring over the country right now?
There's no doubt that the drug of victimhood and the narcotic of despair is spreading through our country like a cancer, being fed to our children because the radical left want power and control. They do not, I want to make this clear, they do not want progress on those underlying issues. That is not their objective. Their objective is to use the underlying issues of race or class in order to amass power and control. That's one of the more important reasons why the truth of my life disproves the lies of the left. To hear more about my story, Mark, you can go to votetimscott.com, read about my story, make a contribution, but we are going to win this war for the American value system that made you and me possible. The radical left weaponizes the issue of race whenever they find themselves in a bind about racial progress. It is about using race as a weapon for control.
That's votetimscott.com. We'll put it on all of our social sites, votetimscott.com. I know you have to go. Let me ask you one more question here about this. when it comes to race, don't you think Barack Obama missed a massive opportunity to really pull the country together, to get people to appreciate each other for who they are, instead of building into this groupism and class warfareism and all the rest that now Joe Biden has taken and is multiplied by 1,000? Did he miss an opportunity to really bring the country together?
Mark, he missed a softball moving at slow speed with a big bat. You can't miss this opportunity. America was hungry for bringing our country together. This coalition building where we could see black kids and white kids, red ones and brown ones, as MLK spoke about, joining hands and singing with new meaning, "My country 'tis of thee." President Obama missed that opportunity. President Biden ran as the great uniter, and he has been the great divider. I've heard more negative things about people under his leadership than I have in a long time. And I will tell you, the one thing the far left does not want a black person to be in this country is a conservative. Conservatism works because we are willing to conserve the values of our founding fathers. They weren't perfect. I know that as well as anybody. But they were to be celebrated because of the success that built the nation that stands above the rest. If we had that kind of optimistic, positive, yet conservative leadership, we would be winning general elections from sea to shining sea. It is possible for America to come together, but not because of the color of our skin, but because of the consistency of our value system that allows people to rise. Whether, like I'm in Pella, Iowa today, in the rural parts of Iowa or the inner cities of Columbia, South Carolina, all things are possible in the greatest land, the freest, fairest place on earth, Mark. You know it, and I love it.
I don't know of anybody who dislikes you, by the way, including President Trump has said some very, very positive things about you and not about other opponents in the Republican primary. I worked for Reagan. I campaigned for Reagan in 76 and 80, Senator. In some ways, remind me of him in terms of your attitude, in terms of your message. Is that somebody who you look up to and somebody whose speeches and campaigns you've taken a look at?
I will tell you, my model for politics has always been Jack Kemp. He is such a bleeding heart conservative. He was, I should say. But Ronald Reagan embodies the enthusiasm and the optimism that is infectious. I can't think of a higher compliment from you, Mark, than to be in the same paragraph with Ronald Reagan. Here's what I know, though. Having spoken at the Reagan Ranch, the Reagan Library, here's what I can tell you. I believe that if we are to have another American century, we as Americans have to come together. Not because we're looking for a kumbaya, not because we're going to have uniformity, but because diversity of thought is what led to serious debates over serious topics that produced amazing conclusions and solutions that set people free. We have redefined poverty worldwide because of the economic system called capitalism in America. We should celebrate those conservative values that make us possible. And if we shout it from the mountaintop and then take it to the valleys, if we talk about it in the boardroom but take it to the classrooms, if we do it with a gymnasium surrounded by our friends but also do it in an inner city church surrounded by skeptics, we will become the dominant party in every corridor of this amazing nation.
Mm-hmm. Well, I have to say, Senator Scott, that when you speak and the way you speak, it really is uplifting. And that's a very, very good thing. Feel free to come on any time, and we look forward to having you back, Mr. Producer. It's, what is it again? It's votetimscott.com, correct?
Yes, sir. That's correct. VoteTimScott.com. And, Mark, if you want to have me on every day, I understand. We'll do this again tomorrow and Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday. But once again, Mark, let me just finish where I started. You and I agree on 90% of the issues as far as I can tell, maybe 95%. But you are a fierce, powerful voice, and your objective seems to be to share the truth that you know with the American people. We need champions with backbones. Thank you for being one. I'm going to be another.
Well, God bless you. That's very kind of you, Senator. And be safe on that campaign trail. Take care of yourself.
God bless you, sir.